Mulla Nasruddin was hauled up before the Caliph, who said to him, "I believe that you have supernatural powers. Demonstrate them to me immediately, or I will have your head severed from your body." So Mulla Nasruddin closed his eyes and put a beatific look on his face and said, "I see your parents sitting on celestial thrones surrounded by the gods. They're wearing white robes, golden crowns, and have fragrant garlands around their necks." So the Caliph was very well pleased with this, and he said, Mulla, tell me, where did these occult powers arise from?" The Mulla said, "Fear. Fear will do it every time." So then there was a certain monk, and he'd been in the monastery for decades, more than 30 years, and he was quite revered. He'd mastered all the sutras and the rituals that were of that faith. But unlike some of the other monks and nuns, he'd never come to realization. So one day, the abbess called him to her to discuss this dilemma, and he admitted that it was the fear of the unknown that was his stumbling block. So the abbess said to him, "Well, the only recourse left to you is to enter the red door. And when you do, and the door is closed and locked behind you, there is no possibility that it will be opened and you will be able to be released." Well, at first the monk was very joyous that at last he was going to attain liberation. But then he remembered that the red door was in the basement and was given very wide berth by all of the monks and nuns. In fact, it was known that no one had entered that door for several generations. It was whispered that this was the door to the abbess, and that only the abbess herself knew what lay behind that door. But the abbess and the monk went down to the basement, and the door was opened, and the abbess pushed the monk in, closed the door, and locked it behind him. He stood. The room was very large, at least 100 meters square. And as he'd been told by the abbess, he must enter the room, walk across the room, and exit out of the door on the other side. Well, he could clearly see the exit door on the other side, but he found himself standing on a ledge that was no more than a door's width wide. And between this ledge and the exit door was a chasm from which strange sounds emanated. Even flashing flames seemed to rise up from its depths. The monk was very afraid. he stood trembling on the ledge and viewed the room in all its detail, wondering if there was a way to traverse it, to reach the exit door. But no such possibility was there in his sight. The second day, he banged on the door to be released. "Let me out, let me out." The third day, he wept the whole day. The fourth day, he sat on the edge of the ledge, and his shoe dropped, and great flashes and flames seemed to come from this abyss. On the fifth day, he wondered if he'd gotten the instructions of the abbess correct. Enter the room and cross the room to exit the door on the other side. Could it be that the abbess was mistaken? He was filled with doubts and fears. And the next day, exhausted and hungry, he took a step out. And there, under his foot, was solid ground. He stood teetering there for another day, and the next day dared to take another step. When he did, again there was something solid under his feet. The monk traversed that room and exited the doorway on the other side. And from that moment on, there was no longer any question of realization or absence of realization from that time onward. Over these days, the question's been asked again and again. How do we know that we've reached that place where the three levels of life are merged? But we can equally ask ourselves, what lies for us in the aperture that this state opens for us? Could it be that this state of Satchitananda is a red door for us? A red door that we must pass through if we're to attain what is called liberation, realization, a state of absence of illusion. Is there anything in your being that stops you from acknowledging, yes, I do have confirmations that I now abide in a state of Satchitananda, where the three levels of life, mind, existence, are now merged into undifferentiated awareness? If there is, then we recognize that there is fear of the unknown in us, because that red door is acceptance of this state. In accepting this state, the door opens up for us, and on entry there is no turning back. It's like a planet entering the mouth of a black hole. When it does so, its fate is sealed. All of the light of illusion is squeezed out of its existence. What is the impediment, if any, to your acceptance of this state? Look carefully, diligently. If there's still a vestige of doubt, it's fear